was a rainy Tuesday morning in downtown Seattle. Olivia, a young freelance illustrator with paint stains on her hoodie and a tired smile on her lips, stepped into her regular corner cafe for her usual, a black coffee and a seat by the window. She had deadlines, bills, and not much time for anything else. As she reached for her wallet, the barista hesitated. The card machine was down again. Behind her, a sharply dressed man in a dark coat waited silently. Without thinking, Olivia turned and said, "I got it, just a coffee, right?" She tapped her card for both orders and smiled. The man didn't thank her. He just looked at her with a gaze so cold and unreadable it sent a chill down her spine. Then he nodded once and walked away with his coffee. No name, no small talk, just silence. The barista leaned in and whispered, "You know who that was?" Olivia shook her head. That was Marcus Langston. Her heart dropped. That name, the billionaire. Ruthless, feared, untouchable, the man known for destroying companies and lives with a phone call, and she had just bought him a coffee. Marcus Langston was not a man who blended in. Every major financial paper had written about him, though never kindly. He had turned a tech empire into a financial behemoth, acquiring companies and stripping them bare before selling them at a profit. Former partners described him as brilliant, but brutal. Employees who displeased him vanished from the industry. Rumors swirled that even other billionaires avoided dealing with him, not for lack of respect, but out of fear. His presence in a casual coffee shop, wearing no entourage and ordering something as mundane as a black coffee, didn't make sense. Marcus Langston didn't do casual. Olivia had heard the name during business podcasts she played while drawing. She never imagined he was real, or that she'd meet him, much less that she'd pay for his drink. She laughed nervously to herself. It was nothing, just a coffee. He wouldn't remember her, but Marcus Langston didn't forget, not acts of betrayal, and certainly not unexpected kindness. Somewhere across town, in the tinted back seat of a black car, Marcus stared at his cup. A name scribbled on it. Olivia. He smiled for the first time in a long time. Olivia's life was not one that made headlines. She lived in a small apartment filled with canvases, unpaid invoices, and a cat named Finn. Most of her income came from illustrating children's books and designing small ad campaigns. She was passionate, talented, and tired. Her kindness was often unnoticed, the type that paid for someone else's parking meter, stayed after to help clean up after community art classes, or left encouraging notes inside returned library books. But kind didn't pay the bills. That morning, she had no idea that the man she helped had the power to buy the entire building she lived in, or shut down the agencies that owed her money. To Olivia, Marcus Langston was a headline. To Marcus, Olivia had become an anomaly. Because in his world, no one gave without expecting something. Everyone had an angle. But she had simply smiled, paid, and walked away, like it meant nothing. Like he meant nothing. And that was what disturbed him most. Marcus wasn't used to curiosity. Everything in his life was predictable, designed, calculated. So when he arrived at his penthouse, he found himself doing something he hadn't done in years. Searching. He typed Olivia plus artist plus Seattle into a private search portal. Dozens of names. Then a familiar face. Her portfolio was raw but honest. Children in raincoats, elderly hands holding coffee mugs, cityscapes painted in quiet hues. There was something deeply human in every piece, something Marcus hadn't felt in years. He clicked through her site for over an hour. Then, in the dead of night, he made a call. "I want to hire her," he said. "Sir, offer her a commission. Tell her it's for a private client, no names." "Should I go through her agency?" Marcus smirked. "She doesn't have one. Go directly." For the first time in decades, the billionaire wasn't acquiring a company or a brand. He was chasing sincerity. And sincerity, in his world, was rarer than gold. 2 days later, Olivia received an email. No sender name. Just a message. "You were seen. You are valued. One painting. Any theme. Any size. $25,000. No questions, no meetings, just send the piece. She reread the message a dozen times. Scam? Insane patron? Divine accident? After asking around, checking the email's digital footprint, and still finding no red flags, she made a choice. She'd accept. Not because of the money. Okay, maybe partly because of the money. But because something inside her whispered, this matters. So she painted. For days she worked without sleep. She didn't know who was behind the offer, but the feeling of being seen, it lit something in her. She painted a woman sitting alone in a storm, holding a paper cup. Not afraid, not waiting, just calm. The chaos around her didn't touch her. She was the eye of the storm. She titled it, Grace in the Gray, and sent it. The painting arrived in a sleek wooden crate to Marcus's private collection vault, a space that held only the rarest pieces of art and artifacts, each locked behind reinforced glass. But when Marcus saw the painting in person, he didn't lock it away. He placed it in his office. No one knew where it came from, no plaque, no signature. But clients and executives who came to visit noticed the shift. The man known for fury and fire now had a storm painted on his wall, and a woman sitting calmly in its eye. They whispered, they speculated, but no one asked. Marcus, for his part, couldn't stop staring. Not at the painting, but at what it meant, that someone out there could look into chaos and choose peace. That someone like her could treat someone like him without fear, without calculation. He didn't know her past, but he knew she had something he never had. Lightness. And he wanted to protect it, not own it. The tech world is small. It didn't take long for people to notice Marcus's shifts. His tone softened in meetings. His decisions grew slower, more deliberate. He canceled an aggressive takeover he'd planned for months. Rumors spread that something, or someone, had changed him. No one dared ask directly, but people began watching. He received calls from other billionaires, curious, suspicious, some even concerned. "Are you ill?" one asked. "Losing your edge?" Marcus only smiled. They didn't understand. How could they? They lived in glass towers and armored egos. But he had met a girl who painted storms and gave away coffee like it was nothing. And now nothing felt the same. He didn't feel softer. He felt awake. Meanwhile, Olivia's inbox was full. Requests for interviews, new commissions. Her painting had gone viral after a tech executive secretly posted a photo of Marcus's office online, tagging the mysterious artwork behind him. Though her name wasn't visible, internet sleuths did their work. Within days, she had offers from galleries, agents, and art houses that had once ignored her. Still, she didn't understand why. She hadn't changed. Only the world's attention had. She returned to the cafe one morning as always and ordered her coffee. And as she stepped aside to wait, a man in a dark coat entered. Familiar, but different. Marcus. Olivia's breath caught. Not because he was famous, but because he looked directly at her this time. Not through her, at her. He stepped forward, held out a crisp $10 bill and said, "This time it's on me." She blinked. "You remember?" He nodded. "I remember everything." They sat, talked. Not about art, not about wealth, but about silence. About what it means to be kind when no one's looking. About loneliness. And for the first time in his life, Marcus Langston talked like a human being. Not a weapon, not a machine, a man. Their meetings became quiet rituals. No headlines, no cameras. Just coffee, sketches, and slow conversations. He never tried to control her. She never tried to impress him. They existed in a space without masks, a place neither of them had found anywhere else. And while the world continued spinning, deals, drama, money, they carved out a sliver of calm. But Marcus knew the world would not let this go unnoticed forever. And he had to choose what mattered most. An executive leaked the story. A photo of Marcus and Olivia at the cafe spread online, accompanied by cruel headlines. "Billionaire's soft spot? Is Langston losing his edge?" Suddenly, Olivia's name was everywhere. Her address, her school, her old debts. Tabloids painted her as a manipulator. Blogs accused her of seducing him for fame. Marcus's board panicked, stocks dipped, investors threatened, and in the eye of the storm, Olivia remained silent. But inside she was breaking. She had given without expectation, and now she was drowning in the very spotlight she never asked for. Marcus canceled every meeting, shut down the leaks, paid for privacy lawyers and firewalls, but none of it mattered. Because Olivia looked at him, eyes tired, and asked, "Was it worth it?" He couldn't answer, not yet. So he did the one thing he had never done. He gave up a deal, a big one, publicly, on record. And when the press asked why, he answered, "Some things are more important than power, like people who remind you what it means to have a soul." Olivia stayed away from the spotlight. She turned down interviews, rejected gallery openings, and removed herself from social media. The only place she didn't abandon was her little studio and the cafe where it all began. She started painting again, not for clients, not for commissions, but for herself. She painted a series called Silence Doesn't Scream. In it, storms raged quietly across canvases, but each had a single constant. A figure, sometimes small, always still, observing, enduring. Critics called it minimalist brilliance. Olivia called it survival. Meanwhile, Marcus visited quietly. No bodyguards, no media. Just him. Some days they spoke for hours. Other days they barely exchanged words. Yet the air between them was full of understanding. In her silence, Marcus found peace. In his presence, Olivia found strength. What they had could not be explained in headlines. It wasn't a romance nor a transaction. It was two people who, in a world addicted to noise, had found a space where nothing needed to be said. One afternoon, as golden light streamed through the cafe windows, Marcus reached into his coat and handed Olivia an envelope. She opened it cautiously. Inside was a sketch of her own painting, redrawn in graphite by Marcus's own hand. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even particularly good. But it was honest. On the back, one line was written, "You reminded me what it feels like to be human. Thank you." There was no signature, no date. Just the raw confession of a man who had spent decades building walls, only to have them softened by a simple gesture of kindness. Olivia smiled. She didn't need more. She folded the sketch and placed it into her notebook, between pages of unfinished ideas and half-formed dreams. That night, for the first time in weeks, she slept without fear. In the months that followed, Marcus began redirecting his company's energy. He created a grant program for young artists. He revised policies on burnout, mental health, and ethical leadership. His board protested. Investors warned. He didn't care. "I'd rather build something that lasts in the soul," he said during one shareholder meeting, "than keep winning a game no one really understands." Most thought it was a PR stunt, a phase, but it wasn't. Marcus no longer needed to be feared, because fear was a currency for those who had nothing else. He had found something far more valuable, clarity. And it all began with a $3 coffee and a stranger who expected nothing in return. On a cloudy morning, Olivia mailed one final painting to Marcus. It showed two people sitting side by side on a bench, overlooking a chaotic city skyline. One held a coffee cup, the other a sketch pad. Their faces weren't visible, only their shadows stretching long across the pavement. She called it the quiet between us. There was no message, no invoice, just a return address and a memory. When Marcus received it, he didn't place it in his office. He hung it in his home, and for the first time in decades, the walls felt less cold. Years passed. Marcus slowly retreated from the public eye. He stepped down as CEO, leaving the company in the hands of a new generation, one trained not in power plays but in empathy. His name faded from headlines, but his influence lingered in quiet places, in coffee shops that offered pay-it-forward options, in mentorship programs he funded anonymously, in Olivia's art that now hung in hospitals, shelters, and schools. The feared billionaire had become a ghost, not of warning, but of change. Legacy, he'd once believed, was built with steel and contracts. Now he knew. The strongest legacy is built when no one knows your name, only your impact. On the 10th anniversary of the morning she paid for his coffee, Olivia entered the cafe and ordered the same drink. As the barista handed it over, she noticed a new plaque on the wall. Small, wooden, and carved with care. It read, "In honor of every quiet act of kindness that changed a life." She didn't ask who put it there. She just smiled. And as she sat by the window, a man walked past outside. Older now, gray at the temples, coat collar raised against the wind. He didn't stop. Didn't wave, but he looked through the glass just once. And in that glance, everything that mattered was said. Again, without words.